This is White Plains Week, the weekly news roundup. With your moderator, John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter. Jim Benaroff, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And Peter Katz, noted broadcaster and journalist. White Plains Week. What's happened? Who are the newsmakers? And what's in store for the future? The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented Fridays at 7:30 and again on Mondays at 7 p.m. here on Channel 76. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, and all you would-be district attorneys out there. We know, or think we know, who you are, and it's time to throw your hats into the ring. John Bailey with the anchor for all seasons, Peter Katz. Jim Benaroff is on assignment, and we're with you once again to wrap up another wild and woolly White Plains Week. Peter, the headlines, please.
All right, John, and here are the headlines for White Plains Week program being recorded February 19th, 2016. The city holds its first public meeting to acquire citizen input on how the White Plains Transit District might be redeveloped. Temperatures plummet to the zero mark in White Plains, then soar to 50 degrees in 48 hours, followed by heavy rains. And brother, was it cold in the New York metro area. The Pope is critical of Donald Trump without naming him, and Trump is critical of the Pope. The Clinton-Sanders issue heats up in Nevada as the Nevada caucus nears. White Plains Bethel Baptist Church and Calvary Baptist Church make their buildings available as warming shelters for the homeless in the sub-zero temperatures. The Westchester County Commissioner of Health warns pregnant women not to travel to Mexico, the Caribbean, Central and South America due to the Zika virus risk. White Plains resident Bruce Bendish announces that he is running for Westchester County District Attorney to fill the seat vacated by Janet DiFiore when she was appointed Chief Judge of New York State. Governor Cuomo announces an undercover fair housing enforcement program. And you'll be happy to know this, John Bailey gets a smartphone. John?
Yes, maybe we won't be as dumb. Right.
Maybe
exactly.
not.
Right now, let's go to the White Plains Week newsreel march of time. And, of course, the temperature was marching down last Sunday morning, overnight from Saturday.
That was about 7:30 a.m. that you took that picture, showing it just barely hitting the 5-degree mark.
Yes.
But around the New York metro area, it was below zero in many places.
Many places.
New records were set. All-time records, actually, were set. It was, of course, Valentine's Day last Sunday. And...
Yes.
The only thing...
It was a good day to stay inside with your sweetie pie.
Now, the only thing frostier than the look you got by not providing enough flowers and candy to your sweetheart was the temperature outside.
We provided other benefits.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, regarding this cold weather, the White Plains Department of Public Safety was right up front on this on Saturday night when they could see that the temperatures were really plummeting rapidly. They organized a special task force of police to go about looking for people who were out on the streets and obviously not under shelter, and they also organized the Bethel Baptist Church and Calvary Baptist Church volunteering to make their buildings available as warming shelters. I contacted both churches, but they did not really get back to me of how many people they had come in. So if they didn't have anyone come in, then it meant that White Plains has done a great job between lifting up Westchester.
Is not a problem in White Plains anymore. It used to be during the winter. You'd hear a lot about the homeless issue in
Well,
White
the
Plains.
panhandling issue still exists during the day, but on the other hand, well, panhandlers feel, I guess, they can make more money down in New York City now under the new relaxed rules. But be that as it may, the police did a great job. The city was upfront. They notified media that this was available, and they gave people numbers to call in case they knew of people who lost heat or didn't have it in their apartments or homes and needed a place to stay warm, because my heat actually went off on overnight between Sunday and Monday because my water tank got low.
The boiler ran low on water, so the safety shutoff
It was down to 45.
shutting it off, so you had to put some water back in the boiler, and then it came back on.
Yes, but it took 5 to 6 hours to get the heat back up to a reasonable level, 45 degrees. So the problem with going on vacation this time is if you go away and you get a cold snap, that could happen to your place.
You know, it sounds kind of silly at first to blame this cold weather on global warming, but actually that's what it is. It's a result of global warming, heating up of the Pacific Ocean, which forms this El Nino, which affects the jet stream and allows all of this cold Arctic air to be pulled down across our area.
Yes.
So we will find this week the temperatures warming up, perhaps even tomorrow and Sunday. We're
48 degrees by Sunday predicted.
And maybe above 50 in some parts of the New York metro area.
And while I mention it, don't forget that 50-degree weather expected Sunday. The George Washington's birthday celebration will take place at the Jacob Purdy House 1 to 4.
Now that's George Washington's
real birthday on Monday.
Right.
On Monday, it's still not his real birthday, but you know everybody has to go back to work Monday.
Yeah, we had the President's Day.
Yeah, that was actually Lincoln's birthday.
Lincoln's birthday was marked on the Friday, and then the President's Day was on the Monday. So for some people, it was a 4-day weekend.
Right. But then, after the cold departed, we had a tremendous rainstorm on Tuesday, which is very symptomatic of the weather that you're talking about.
Fortunately, there wasn't
Wild
too much
swings.
There wasn't too much
winds.
flooding.
Yeah, but yes.
And we did not hear anything about the Bronx River Parkway flooding again as a result of the heavy rain, which is kind of unusual when there's a heavy rain that the Parkway does not flood.
Yeah, but it had slushed up and it was very icy on Monday.
Yeah, actually, DPW did a pretty decent job on the roads. They put down a lot of salt and sand and.
With a lot of hope.
The roads in White Plains were pretty
They've done
clear.
a good job. They've done a good job.
Elsewhere in the metro area, they were having plenty of accidents from ice on the roads. But.
Right. Now, Peter, I know it doesn't happen too often, but they were serving coffee and tea and cookies and water at the public library recently to general citizens, free, and to help welcome people to a meeting. Peter, you were there. Tell us what happened.
About 130 people were at the White Plains Public Library Thursday evening, February 11th, for the first in a series of 3 public meetings on redevelopment of the White Plains Transportation Center and portions of the downtown and Battle Hill. The announced purpose of the meeting was to collect ideas and comments from the public about the redevelopment concept. Several employees of the consulting firm Parsons Brinkerhoff, which was hired by the city to coordinate the study, were stationed in the lobby area outside of the auditorium to chat with residents and listen to their ideas. Paper forms were available on which people could express themselves. About a dozen different poster displays covered various aspects of the train station's history and its place as the 3rd busiest station in the Metro-North system. The meeting itself began with remarks by Mayor Tom Roach.
We got a $1 million grant to do this study, and one of the reasons that I wanted to do that is, rather than have, as was previously proposed, have all that land at the train station basically given to one developer to come up with a concept, we want to work together to come up with what works for the city, for the people who live here, for the people who work here, for the people who play here. and balance all that, and then we start to talk to people who are going to develop it. But they'll be working from our view and not what they can see.
In his presentation, Planning Commissioner Chris Gomez offered those in attendance their only chance to be heard by everyone else as they sent one-word text messages to a special number. The words were then displayed on a screen. The public was not allowed to speak. After the meeting, one of those in attendance, former Councilman Dennis Power, recalled what it was like about a decade ago when developer Louis Capelli went to the Common Council with an idea to redevelop the train station, and the council quickly shot it down.
Everyone thought this was a done deal, but we started asking some very solid questions, and we worked very hard to make sure that it would stop dead in its tracks.
So why start the development now?
The time, well, because now we're involving many more players in the process, including Metro. I think Capelli and the mayor and everyone had some really good ideas. I don't take that for granted, but it was so important to be involving the neighborhoods, the transportation sector, the corporate community, the citizens, the organization. Now we've got, it's taking a long time, but we would have had a big hole in the ground for many years if we didn't stop it. So now we're doing it, I think, in probably the real correct way, and that is participatory, collaborative, and because financially, we need a lot of players in the game, especially the federal, the state, the local, the transportation, everyone, to be making it happen.
Now, John, after the meeting, I had a chance to chat with Mayor Roach, and he said that the $1 million grant, which they had gotten from New York State, will be very useful in that it will pay for this study, and it will also offer the opportunity to figure out which elements of the original downtown urban renewal can be changed. One of the things that he really wants to see changed is to have some, maybe all, of the one-way boulevards turned back to two-way streets. Now, they were originally set up as one-ways to help get the traffic of office workers into the city and out of the city in a very expeditious manner, and also to make it very easy for people to get into the city and to shop here on weekends or during holiday times.
Well, that means you either have to widen them,
well,
because right now each of them do give you about 4 to 5 lanes, 4 lanes.
One thing you would have to do would be to consider widening, which would not be possible unless if you eliminate parking on many streets, then you could, in theory, take those lanes and convert them into traffic lanes or bike lanes or whatever. The mayor said he's very concerned that the downtown is not pedestrian friendly. Although there are some who will tell you that if you have two-way streets, that's tougher for pedestrians to look two ways instead of just looking one way when you're trying to cross a one-way street. He said the streetscape itself needed to be improved. He especially pointed to the Verizon building and to the frontage of the Galleria on Main Street as being very uninviting and unattractive for pedestrians.
Very CBS architecturally.
Somewhat.
Yes,
somewhat,
that's
yes.
right. But we're referring to, of course, Black Rock, which was vilified.
Well, the CBS building, actually, there are many who very much like that type of stark architecture.
Stark is a good word.
If you can remember back to the 50s, Lever House, that glass and steel building on Park Avenue, created quite a stir and became quite popular, even though from a pedestrian standpoint, there was really nothing to look at except glass and some stainless steel trim.
Now, in June, they're going to have another one of these meetings when they're going to tell us the results of their texting survey, right?
Yes, they are,
Yeah.
also at the public library. The thing about this meeting was that it was billed, as an opportunity for public input, but there was no opportunity for a member of the public to tell all the other members of the public what he or she thought. The flow of information all goes into the hands of the consultant,
Right.
Parsons Brinkerhoff.
Right.
And so when you do that, when you don't allow people in your audience to hear what other members of the audience are saying, you then control the flow of information. And if you control the flow of information, then you can shape the outcome of that information. Now, I'm not saying that that's what they're going to be doing here.
But I think you have to give them some sort of benchmark of things to think about. Do you want to develop it with stuff that brings more revenue to the city? I think of things like a convention center or sports arena combination. I think of things like apartments built over the train station.
Actually, in our conversation, I reminded the mayor that some years ago, Metro North did propose building high-rise apartments above the railroad tracks. And I asked him if that was now back on the table since Metro North was involved in this. He said no. He said no, they have walked away from that idea.
Okay, now, from what I understand, there is a great deal of interest in parks and gateways and aesthetic things. Now, that doesn't make money, let's put it that way.
Among the highlights of Chris Gomez's presentation, the planning commissioner, was an emphasis on public space, on new parks. And on
hopefully with admission charges.
On making the train station extremely bicycle friendly to encourage people to ride their bikes.
Are they going to charge parking for bicycles? That would be a revenue producer.
I don't know, but
and everybody else has to pay for it.
A member of the public could not have asked that question. Because,
certainly not.
Because members of the public were not invited to speak at this meeting.
No, but I'm not joking about the building of buildings and enterprises that are revenue producing.
Well,
because
if you remember,
otherwise it's a lot of money burned.
Capelli's proposal, which was shot down, went heavily into mixed-use, high-rise apartments, office space, and retail, and also to developing a brand new train terminal, train station. In the image of Grand Central Station, which is a thriving retail space. Now, the one problem, of course, is that White Plains does not have the traffic that Grand Central Station has. You have a lot of people going through Grand Central Station, certainly more than enough to support all of the retail.
And it's historic. People want to see it. Everybody comes to New York, goes to Grand Central Terminal.
It's a grand tourist attraction. You don't have that at the White Plains train station.
But they have really promoted that station well, and they stage different retail type displays there.
The other thing about this meeting at the library, it was scheduled from 6:30 until 8:30. And while there was an opportunity to mingle, to talk with the consultants, to talk with the mayor, other elected officials who were there, nonetheless, this was dinner hour.
Dinner hour. It was not well timed, and if you work in New York City, you can't get home for a 6:30 meeting. But be that as it may, this is the first. And we just feel that you've got to let the public speak. And, oh, by the way, what was the key word that seemed to draw the most text?
Parking.
Wow! Peter, I'm shocked. Shocked that it's parking.
One of the great concerns was parking.
Well, no, that's another thing. You have to figure out how you're going to build more parking at a train station where permits are at a premium, and there is no more permits to be had. So therefore, you've got to expand that. Where are you going to do it? And you have to give people something to work with, and not just words and feelings. You really do.
Well, there were some feelings running very high in the country this week when the Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia passed away. President Obama was not going to attend the funeral, scheduled for tomorrow, Saturday. We don't know why. The White House didn't say why. Scalia apparently had a heart attack, And immediately the controversy started over a replacement for him. So we will see if Obama actually names a replacement. The Republicans say, don't bother because we're not going to vote upon it in the Senate if you do.
Well, right now, though, the important thing is that it's 4-4. So if they don't have a justice there, you're going to have a lot of decisions deadlocking on very important issues.
It's possible.
But that's what happens. They let the lower ruling stand.
Well, that's what
how it
happens
works.
in a deadlock, in a tie.
So that is why it's really dumb of the Republicans to say not to do that, because it just points out as...
Also this
but
week...
what's new? Republicans being dumb. I mean, it seems that's the
Also this
thing.
week
Right.
nationally, there was a bit of a flap. The Pope apparently was critical of Donald Trump when the Pope was flying back from Mexico to Rome. On the plane, he was asked a question by a reporter about some of the things that Trump had said about building a wall to separate Mexico from the U.S. And the Pope said that people who build walls instead of building bridges are unchristian. It was clear who he was making reference to, even though he did not mention Trump by name.
Well, there are some other candidates that have suggested the same thing on that dais. And I think it could be a blanket criticism of the...
Trump very quickly fired back.
Well,
saying
he shouldn't
that
be so sensitive.
Saying that what the Pope said was unpope-like.
Yeah.
So.
Well, no, what Trump should have said was, well, hey, that must be Ted Cruz. It's not me. You know, that's what he could have said. But that's the problem. You got to think things out. But speaking of Mexico, the Westchester County Commissioner of Health warned this week in a press release that pregnant women should not travel to Mexico, the Caribbean, Central and South America due to the Zika virus risk. And it has been shown to cause deformed fetuses in pregnant women.
Well, babies. They're babies born with small heads.
Right.
There are several thousand cases like this. It is a mosquito-borne illness.
Yeah.
And the question I have is, how long has this been around? Now, we just heard about it perhaps 2 months ago for the first time. But is this something that has been around for years and years and years? When did this first appear?
That still hasn't been explained.
And were deformed babies up to this point who were being born attributed to some other illness?
It could be. I mean, but however, that type of a travel ban is really amazing. This is high vacation
Now,
time.
there have been a couple of cases popping up in the New York metro area, and the thinking is that the people who have been infected with this virus did pick it up overseas. The thing that the people have in common is that they all had been traveling before being diagnosed with this illness.
But I mean, we printed the entire news release on WPCNR.com, and it's important to read because the symptoms can be much like a cold or something. So you really have to be checked for it.
The thing that we have to be concerned about is, as we now get into what may be an early spring, if you believe the groundhog from a couple of weeks ago, we're going to have an early spring. Does that mean that there's a greater opportunity for mosquitoes to grow? We have had some very heavy rains recently. There still is some ponding around and puddling around on grassy surfaces. Does this mean that the environment is now going to be very conducive for a very heavy mosquito season?
Well, I think the health department is apparently on top of it, and it's amazing this has not been pounced upon by other news media about it's unprecedented, a health commissioner warning people not to travel to a wide range of countries.
Now, there's some pouncing going on in the political world, and it's people trying to pounce on the vacant position of district attorney in Westchester County. There is an interim appointment that has been made, but we're going to have an election to fill out the term of Janet DiFiore. And just this week, a fellow named Bruce Bendich, who lives in White Plains, announced his candidacy. John, you were there.
Yeah, I was, and he wants to bring in veterans courts to handle veterans issues. He also wants to coordinate the law enforcement agencies around the county more technically and more upgraded technical. Well, he's upgrading, and he also said that his experience makes him probably the best person for the job. He worked for Carl Vagari. He also mentored
Carl
and trained.
Vagari was what seemed like the lifetime district attorney some years ago.
Yes,
he
right.
just kept being elected term after term.
And
but now there are a total of 3 declared candidates at this point.
Yes, the other is Mitchell Benson, the former executive assistant DA in Nassau County the last 3 years, and the another 2 that are on the Democratic side are said to be George Fufidio, a criminal defense lawyer, and also the former surrogate judge, Anthony Scarpino, is being thought about running. That comes from Jonathan Bandler of the Journal News, who reported that.
Now, we also learned this week that Governor Cuomo has announced a new program that he's starting, and the revelation there is Cuomo's allegations that there is unfairness
in housing.
Right.
Well, and we thought that was all eliminated 30 years ago, right?
Well, apparently it's still going on.
And on my website, I printed his entire press release because they
and
documented
what's
cases.
the address of your website?
WPCNR.com, and it's very instructive, so much so that the governor is putting together testers who will work to safeguard the rights of all New Yorkers, and they will visit various real estate offices
go in
as undercover people and see what
whether
houses
they're steered
shown.
to certain areas, whether they're not allowed to see certain houses, etc.
Right, and I find that really fascinating that it's that widespread, because that's his bread and butter, realty, you know.
Real estate.
Real estate. Now, there's a lot of renovation going on in White Plains. We were at the Westchester Food Court just the other day.
Well, it's at the Westchester Mall. We were surprised to see that the food court is closed.
Yes, and we don't know exactly what they're doing. But
we know that some time ago Simon Malls had announced that they were going to be doing renovations and upgrading and improvements at the Westchester Mall. So this may be part of that.
May be part of it. And then it was announced this week, Journal News noted on the Facebook and the Twitter comments by 42 that the restaurant is closing for renovations.
This is on top of the Ritz-Carlton building here in downtown White Plains. 42 was the big
and Louis
splashy restaurant.
Louis Capelli confirmed it and said they will be reopening before the summer. And right now, pretty sure to attend George Washington's birthday party on Sunday afternoon. Here's a shot at the Purdy House. It's always a great thing. John Bailey, White Plains Week, and Peter Katz. Good night.
White Plains Week has been a presentation of White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com, in cooperation with Channel 76. Comments may be emailed to WPCNR@AOL.com. The copyrighted print White Plains Cityscape by Leonard Weber is used courtesy of the White Plains Presbyterian Church. For information on its availability, you may contact the church at 761-8585. The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented Fridays at 7:30 and again on Mondays at 7 p.m. here on Channel 76. For White Plains Week, this is Seth Benarov speaking.